Hi, today I wanted to walk through something that I think people don't talk about in Pinguicula care very much. But there's this thing that happens where moss will form on the top of your pots, and I think they'll eventually choke out your plants. So I just wanted to go through how I take care of this, probably once or twice a year on my own pings. And I have a few examples here, kind of a few different types of this phenomenon, I guess, and what I'm going to do for each. So the backstory here is I've kind of neglected my pings. I have a big tray of these. These were toward the back. I went on a trip. I kind of kept putting this off. And believe it or not, at one point I was like, oh, I'm going to do a video of this, so I'll just save it for when I do this video. So can I blame you, YouTube? Maybe not. But okay, so here's the first one that we want. I think this is really something that we want, I'm saying. So in this case, you can kind of move around the soil at the top. There's probably a little bit too much peat in the soil for my conditions, but whatever. Like, it still moves around. It's still kind of, dark, and actually conducting the water up to the surface, like where the ping needs it. So this one I think looks fine. It's starting to harden a little bit, but it's not too bad. I think this is maybe a condoy. Anyway. So this one is kind of the first case. So I think this is like the first stage a little bit where you get a ton of moss. And let me just back up and say, you can change your soil so that this doesn't happen. But I have more peat in my soil probably than I should. And I think it's just a learning process. I've had these pings for 1 or 2 years, and it wasn't really a factor before, but then my lighting changed, my trays changed. Anyway, so, there's probably too much peat in it now. Anyway, this got overgrown. And then what you'll do, like, or how you'll know is you're like, okay, this moss is kind of tough. So at some point, the moisture's not going to reach your ping anymore. And this moss will probably die. And then the ping will also die. And they're really resilient, right? But I don't, in my experience, when this happens, they don't really have a chance to go to winter form and like save themselves, really. Let me know if you've had a different experience, but I have not seen that. I've lost a ping or two, I think, for these reasons. Anyway, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take these tweezers and basically like skim the top off of this and then put a new, more minerally mix on top, kind of to adjust for my new conditions. And then I will kind of plop the ping back in there. And hopefully I don't disturb it too much, but if you've, have experience with these plants, you kind of don't need to worry about that. The roots are not very extensive here. Anyway, so I think it'll be fine. And, they're not extensive. That's kind of okay to disturb them, like pick them up and plop them back down. Anyway, so I'm going to zoom in here, move that guy out of the way, and then I'll show you what I'm gonna do and try to look behind the camera and not mess myself up. But so it's a little bit hard. Yeah, this is dense. Like, this is hard to grab right now. But I'm gonna kind of like pull it off, and then you'll see what's under there. I bet a lot of this, black dirt has kind of moved up to the top. Oh my gosh, this is like a chunk of turf right now. Okay, so I'm taking a chunk out. Yeah, and like I can see already that this soil has totally changed. Like, all of the, wet kind of stuff is up toward the surface. It was not very minerally. Wow, this is like a solid chunk. So yeah, this is probably more overdue than I thought even. Anyway, that's a huge chunk out. So yeah, kind of interesting. You can see the ping roots there. There's not a whole lot. Like, this ping has a ton of roots for a ping, but not compared to, many other plants. I feel like people who are new to them often, they're like, oh, whoa, I don't want to disturb these roots. You kind of don't need to worry about that so much with pings, I don't think, within reason. Let me know if you disagree. But anyway, what I'm going to do, and maybe this is kind of like a lazy man's solution, but I'm going to kind of put this stuff down because this is like perfectly good, I think. And I'm just going to fill on top with this more minerally mix that I use now. But before I do that, just look at this. It's like, this is dense and like thick and just not the kind of medium that you would plant a ping in anymore. So it's just changed, it's no good, and I would, chuck this away. Okay, so I have this more minerally mix, and like, what do you plant your pings in? It's kind of a long conversation, unfortunately, but it kind of just depends. Like, I would start with, something with like minerals and peat, right? But then you can adjust and see what works for your space for like how you want to treat yours. So I'm putting this mix in. I think this one doesn't have any peat, and I'm gonna put a little bit of peat at the end, but and really you should probably pre-mix this. I'm kind of being lazy, but I'm putting this because I know that my tray is going to be wet enough often enough that it's not going to dive into winter form, just because there's not that much peat and not that much moisture in this. But anyway, back to what you should do for your place. I think you should probably start with something that's like 2/3 minerals and 1/3 peat, and then you should see how that does for you. Like, are they acting how you want? Do you feel like you have to, water them too much, or are they going into summer or winter dormancy and you don't want them to? Things like that. And then you can adjust from there and adding more peat if you want to, want more moisture and maybe encourage them to stay in summer longer or whatever you want to do with that, etc. Or maybe like me, I'm having too much moss form, kind of too thickly. So I'm trying to turn it down a little bit and seeing how the pings do. Turning down the peat content, that is. So yeah, this is basically what I'm going to do for this. I don't have my spray bottle near me. I would typically like spray this with water and make sure everything's kind of coming into contact around the roots. But looking around for my water, and I think it's not here. Anyway, okay, so here's one. Okay, the second one is like even tougher. I thought this was a really dry one, and this guy was small and he was in winter form when I got him, but I think this is just a really old planting that I inherited. Like, I haven't even had this thing that long. Okay, so here I go, and I'll end up to zoom out so you can see a bit more here. Yeah, this one to me was like a much drier case, and I think because it's smaller, yeah, like this guy's gonna get disturbed a little bit more. But again, I don't think you really need to worry. And you can see under here, there's a really high sort of mineral mix. So it's interesting, even with, I think probably a much lower sort of peat percentage. I mean, I can take this entire thing off at once. So yeah, it's going to take the ping with it, but, and I'll zoom in here. You don't really need to worry about it. Like, there's very little root there. And I'm not being rough with it, but I'm just trying to, I'm not squeezing, but I'm just gonna like literally put it aside right now while I take the top off of this. And there we go, just kind of dress this. And honestly, to me, this needs a bit more peat. Which, so I actually bought this, or I got it from somebody, and I'm shocked how minerally it is under there. Anyway, so I have a little dish of peat that I'm going to like mix up just into it, very kind of DIY-y, but yeah, this way there'll just be a little bit moisture for this guy. Okay, do this, and then what I'm going to do right after this video is I'm going to I'm just kind of making a hole for it, sticking what is sort of a root in there, and yeah, right after the video I'm going to spray the top with water. So I just do that. I spray like around the base. I'll point to it just to make sure that there's contact with the roots, right? And then it's really fine. Okay, so the third case, this is like the worst case. My sloppy board. Okay, so this guy is called Hemiepiphytica C, and this case is when, okay, there's, we have moss, and this is really a great one. I didn't see this for a while, which I'm disappointed in myself. Then there's a lot of shed leaves under here, which I think actually conducts a bit too much moisture for these. So what happened here is that it started kind of rotting in the inside. And I'm not sure what I find in here, so hopefully there's still some plant to salvage. I have others of this species, so it's okay, but there's kind of that mushy center, and that really worried me. But okay, it actually looks like the plant is okay. You can see a bit of root down there. I can kind of point to it like right down there. I think I'm fine, thankfully. But I mean, I guess we'll see when we go in here. So now for this one, I'm going to just take all this dead stuff away. Like, this is just not something that it needs. And actually my hands might be easier. Pull this away. Yeah, so we have kind of both. And what I might do, honestly, is take this higher till thing out. Okay, so here's a pretty large, at least for Mexican ping. Well, it's not that large anymore. Anyway, so I took this all out. My camera here. And I'm just gonna look at the bottom and kind of remove it this way. And try not, okay, this one's kind of a half alive leaf. I could actually use that to propagate. I'm gonna set that aside because part of it's alive. But yeah, I'm just gonna take this, like put this in my pile of, scraps over here. And then you see like, this is a really peaty soil actually, I'm surprised. But this is one of my oldest, and that's just what I was doing then, so. But it's like so old that I don't remember that even. Okay, so, oh yeah, this one's amazing, I'm so glad. This is an amazing species if you guys ever come across it, Hemiepiphytica C. This is the first one that did super well for me and really kind of encouraged me to get more. Whoa, there's just a bunch of like straight up, oops, sorry, I'm out of here. This, you can see the cleaning itself, sorry. Like straight up peat and weird crap in here. Oh God, yeah, okay. But I'm glad that there's so much healthy plant down there. I was surprised. I thought, like, based on this center, I was really worried. So hopefully I like caught it in time. I don't know if it's splitting or what. I guess I don't know yet. Okay, but I'm gonna set this plant aside, and then honestly, I think I have too much just peat in here. But I'm gonna kind of like mix this up, take out any moss chunks that I see. And just, you're always kind of losing the battle, but at least I set the moss back a little bit more. And I'm going to take my all mineral mix and definitely not add any peat to this, but I'm just going to make this a bit more minerally. Because this is such a big plant, I'm going to leave some hole in the middle. I'm going to amend this to make it a bit drier, for my space. But even if you don't do this, as long as your soil isn't a complete disaster. But if I just put the plant back in this, and if I only just kind of took the top off like that, it would still be really refreshed and a lot better off. So even if you don't have like, some idea to amend your soil, you should just take the moss layer off. That will help a lot. Okay, well, I'm not really going to get a good planting without the water bottle, but at this point what I would be doing is kind of spraying the bottle, making sure the roots settle in the new hole, and then kind of like pushing a little bit over, but I don't know that you really need to do that even with pings, right? Like they're so forgiving with their roots. I bet if you just kept it wet and plopped it on the surface, that would be okay too. But anyway, yeah, this is kind of the end of it. This went a bit longer than I thought, but yeah, I think it's an issue people don't really talk about in ping care, Mexican ping specifically. And yeah, just wanted to sort of show people that, like, acknowledge that yes, it's actually a thing that exists, because I lost a ping and I just wasn't sure why at first. But yeah, hopefully this kind of shows you what to do and not to be afraid of the roots and everything like that. Let me know if you have any questions, and have fun with your butterworts. Thanks.